build in Unity. Could be another shorter one today because I am, like a lot of people who do game development, doing this sort of in the cracks between my day job. So also worth noting that like it's a little slow, but you can build something even if you've only got 30 or 40 minutes a day. So probably a lot of these chunks will be about that length. Okay, so if you remember last time, we made this nice layout here. I have changed the name of the project to Side Editor because the actual game I'm working on, I'm going to sort of create its own category for that. Okay, so if you recall from last time, my first task here is to link the side pack popover to individual side packs. So if I select a side pack from the list, the side pack popover will open. Now if you remember, this is where we're at right now. So we've got the list over here. Clicking on these doesn't do anything except for trigger this callback, if you recall. There. This opens and closes the grid. So what we kind of want to do is take this button away. We want to change this functionality to the side pack selection tool. And then we want to also send the side pack that you selected to this popover. So that's kind of our goal for today's stream. All right, let's see where we're at. Okay, so first of all, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to switch back to the scene here. If we recall, this looks at the pack picker controller .toggle. And all right, so we're gonna actually change this up a little bit. So first of all, we're just gonna delete this button. We don't need it anymore. Go into Rider, open the project. All right. Let's see where we're at in terms of our git commit. I think I've been doing pretty good, but alright, so all we've really done is removed that one thing. This .idea, you can actually ignore this if you want to. This is just if you use IntelliJ, like I am doing, creates that project to manage code. Okay, so scripts, UI, pack picker controller. Alright, so if you recall, toggle in this case just turns things on and off. Okay. We are going to, we're going to modify this slightly first of all. We're going to say change to show. Before we just had this toggle here, so we just turn it on and off, which was fine. But we actually need to do things a little bit differently because we want to say show with, okay, so let's back this up slightly. Text dialog controller. If you recall, we have this saved callback here. And the thing we wanted to do is we want to just have this one single call, get text, etc. So our pack picker is somewhat similar. We can manage a lot of the actual pack management from within this code. But what we kind of want to do is we want to be able to say, if we call the pack picker controller, the thing we want back is a specific item, a specific side item, because that's the purpose of this, is to pick something like that. So if we look at the side engine here, side item is this thing, which we have not really defined yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Public class side item. We're going to say public string name. That's all we're going to really worry about right now. So this item just has a name. We're going to add the actual image and things like that later. Go back to pack picker controller. So we're going to say pick side item. And what we're going to say pack, and then what we need to do is yet again set up a delegate. So this is actually a pretty useful thing. I don't know how. So that's a breakpoint. I don't actually want that to be there. I don't know how to get rid of it. I'm sure there's an easier way to do that, but I don't have time to figure that out right now. I don't really use breakpoints too much, but they can be useful when you're debugging things. Okay. So, if you recall from the last couple episodes, we had this callback set up with the Delegate. And this is actually a point to make because callbacks and delegate functions are, in my mind, sort of an advanced programming concept. Something you really get into like when you're really get into the engineering of things. Very common in web, especially because there's so many what are called asynchronous calls. In other words, you're pulling data from a server or something like that. I suspect a lot of beginning programmers don't really know much about them or how to use them, but they're one of the most powerful tools at your disposal, so it's really worth reading up on those, and they're pretty easy to implement. So once again, because C#, I don't really know what I'm doing, I've got this Lepton, which is again a free download. It's an open source free program that just links to your GitHub account and stores your gists, which are like little pieces of code, little code snippets. So if you recall, I previously made this snippet about how to do a delegate in C#. It was pretty cool. And you can kind of see already something that I've been making a point of several times, which is a lot of people when they're starting, they just plug stuff in. Because they're just trying to figure out how to do a specific thing, and that's their goal. Take your time as you're learning how to do stuff. Make notes. I love Lepton. It's by far the best solution I've found, but there's other stuff out there. Even if it's just a text file. Take notes. Take notes of how you think you can do it. If you find out that you've been doing it wrong, you can edit that. You can change it. Update your protocol. What this means is that rather than Googling every single time how to do this, I just have it now. So rather than wasting time until I finally learn it, this probably speeds me up. This alone, just having the knowledge of how to do something, even though it takes an extra 90 seconds when I do the first time, it probably overall speeds up my process by 30% alone. Let alone if I do another game and then I can actually reuse a lot of my private code libraries and things like that. So it's worth spending that extra time up front to really set yourself up down the road. So this is how we do it. Public delegate, and then we define a function. So you'll notice that this is actually just a function declaration. It's not anything fancy. It's literally the same way you would define a function within your code. The thing that makes it a callback is this delegate, right? So let's define ourselves a image pick or item picker delegate. Public delegate void item picker delegate side item. Right? Voila. Now define a callback here. Item picker callback. And then pretty much just like before, we're gonna say we're gonna store it. Private okay. Now there's one other thing I wanted to do, which is, if you recall from my thing, I've got this. The third task in today's job is to tap outside the pop over to close or cancel. So right now, if you tap outside of there, you're going to actually notice that you're going to hit these other UI elements, right? Like the whatever. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create the same kind of background that we did for the text entry dialog here. Okay. So let's do that. So once again, wait, what's this one? This is just our background color. All right. UI panel. Move that up to side by picker view. Move that into there. This I'm actually just gonna say. Actually, just say none. No image. I'm going to allow this to quote unquote record my screen because that's actually how you pick colors from there. Although I don't actually have to do this right now, but that's fine. We can do that next time when we start. Okay, so what I actually want to do is change this to fully transparent. I suppose make it very slightly, so a little bit opaque so that we can tell there's sort of like a shadow there. All right, so we do that. We've got this here, side picker container. All right. Now, that's all well and good. Now we're going to do one more thing, which is dismiss. No. Let's say complete with side item. All right. So this is how we're going to actually, I don't even have to do that. I will, just to make things a little more clear. So this just means we're going to call the callback to select the item, and we're going to dismiss the self. False, like that. Okay. Now, just like with the text picker, the text dialog entry thing, we're going to want to initialize the view up here. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now because I don't have that much to initialize, but we probably take the scroll view, for instance, and set it to the top. But, honestly, maybe not. It might make more sense to just leave it where the user left off, because that way if they're messing around, if they've got a bunch of items instead of a single pack, they can scroll down, kind of leave it in the same working area, more or less. All right, so we're going to leave that there. So we like that. Now, what I'd like to do is have it so, well, let's get it actually just calling first. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take that, activate that. We're going to take this script off of here, remove component, go up here, side picker container, add component, controller. All right. So now, if you notice, the script is attached to the container, not the specific picker view itself. And then model manager. All right. So model manager is going to need to know about this picker controller, and I'll tell you why in a second. Okay. So first of all, let's link the picker controller to the manager here. that. So here's what's going to happen. So now, all right. So let's actually make this a little clearer. Handle pack selection on the left menu. We're going to say private void handle pack selection. Site pack. All right. Now the reason we're doing it this way, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this code that I currently have sitting in the delegate, and I'm going to move it up here. There's no programmatic reason to do that. It doesn't change our code's logic at all. It's just a little bit clearer. One thing you'll notice is that you end up having like a lot of really nested code with callbacks, and it's worth breaking that up a little bit just to make things a little more readable. Site warning, convert to method group. I actually don't know what that means. I'm not going to worry about it right now. So we got this private void handle pack selection right there, which is good. And private just means, I actually don't even know if I have to do that. There we go. Private just means you can't access it from the outside, from like another thing, which is fine because all of this happens internally. So the pack callback is set to call this handle pack selection here, which if the pack is null, it creates a new one for us. And otherwise, well, let's actually go one better, shall we? So first of all, we're going to say if pack does not equal null. In other words, if you click on a specific pack button, then we're going to take that pack picker controller that we just linked up, dot get pick side item. Voila. If you recall, we've got these two arguments here, pack and callback. So pack, and then we're going to say item fat arrow braces, because that's the shorthand for callback. You don't have to put it in parentheses like this. In fact, you probably only should put it in parentheses if you have two arguments, but it's a little bit of matter of personal style there. Okay. And now we can say debug.log picked item. We just created that name attribute, right? It's just string. So eventually, when you click on a grid, the grid will close and it'll tell us which item we picked. If the item is null, we should actually handle that. If item is null, return. Which you can actually do a shorthand because, so in JavaScript at least, I'm not 100% sure how this works in C Sharp, but there's a concept called truthy, which is if a value is either a Boolean true value, or it exists at all, or it's an integer more than zero, number more than zero, then it's truthy. If it's 0, a false value, or null, or undefined, it's not truthy. So there's actually a way to shorten this, which is just to say if not item, return. Does that actually work in C Sharp? It doesn't seem like it does. Yeah, does not work in C Sharp, so that's good to know. Nice handy shorthand in JavaScript, but looks like C Sharp is a little more explicit, so we're not going to have that issue here. Okay. So basically, if the user doesn't pick anything, like if they click outside of the thing or whatever, it's going to return null. With this one, we have this new pack here. Let's actually do the same thing. Okay. Let's have it so if you create a new pack, it automatically opens it up, right? What that means is we need to universalize this. And in this case, there is a reason. So I'm going to take this, do the same thing here, I'm actually going to take this whole block and I'm put it in a function. The reason I'm going to do that is because I'm repeating it here and here. That's always bad practice to repeat code. If you find yourself copying and pasting a function, figure out a way to abstract it out, because chances are if you're going to change it at some point, if you change one thing, you don't want to have to worry about changing every individual instance of that code. So I always make it abstract. Summon item picker, right? Void call item picker. Side pack. Take this. Now, this seems like kind of a little bit of a train, because you got the refresh packs here, which calls handle pack selection, which in turn calls this, right? The reason we have these on 3 separate layers is because this one actually fills the pack button list on the left and sets this into the delegate, so that if you click on something, it handles that. The reason there's 2 here, we're going to put this here like that. I was going to put it here like that. So that way, in either of these instances, so what you have here is 2 different flows that end in the same place. In other words, this flow is simply click a button, open that side pack. This one is create a new pack, get the name, which in the callback of the text, set the name, add it to the thing, refresh the pack list here, and then open the picker. So both of these end with call item picker, but the way you get to them is different, which is why we've abstracted this out into its own function up here. So, and then this one will get an item and probably end up like persisting it here or something with because that'll essentially be like your palette. So like if you pick an item using this, it'll select that item as the active one, which is the one that you paint on the screen. But we're not going to worry too much about that right now. Okay, so we have that connected. This. Let's see if it works. The one thing we have to do is we have to add now the pack picker controller. So we're going to take this side picker container. We're going to put that in here like that. And then we're going to hide this just like we did with the text dialog. Hit run. Let's see if it works. And there it is. Now you'll notice right now there's no way to dismiss this. We can scroll the thing up and down. That's it. We cannot actually get rid of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to add a click event to this background. And that's something I don't know how to do because, as you'll notice over here on this canvas, there's no like on click handle built in. So let's see what the Google has to offer us. Unity on click panel. Detect UI panel click. I'd say half of every programmer's job is just Googling how to do things. So never feel bad about that. Never waste time trying to figure it out before you Google it. Just Google it. Worst case scenario, end up with people arguing about it, which is informative in and of itself. Add a button component to the object. All right. Fair enough. So, one of the things that's kind of weird and cool about Unity is that there's no such thing as individual elements. Like if you're working with like iOS or something, you have actual like hard-coded, like, this is a button, this is a label, this is a table controller. If you're working with JavaScript, things are a little bit more fuzzy, but you still have like I mostly work with React and Angular in JavaScript, and both of those things you define the components, but they're supposed to still specific components. It's an entity that does a thing, whereas in Unity it doesn't exactly work like that. It's a different kind of pattern. It might even be called the component pattern, I believe, but it means you have a specific entity, which is a game. Let's actually just do this way. Let's create empty. So this is a game object. A game object in Unity is the container that everything else goes into. All a game object is a transform. It's a name, it's active, couple metadata components, and then transform, which is position, XYZ, rotation, XYZ, and scale, XYZ. That's all a game object is. There's nothing else on here. It's just a point in space that doesn't show up, can't interact with anything else. Everything else that happens in Unity is a component that you add on to that game object. So whenever I create something in here, if I go into like modern UI pack and I was to add this like animated icon, heart pop, what that would be, I shouldn't have added it here, but I did. What that would be is a game object with a bunch of different components already added to it with default values set. But these are each separate components. So this isn't one thing called a heart pop. This is a prefab, aka a saved game object with a list of components added to it. All right. So also my UI is doing that thing again on the right side where some of the things don't show up. So let's delete that. And we're going to go to the side picker container. So we already have the pack picker controller there. We're going to add a component button. Just a simple button like that. That's the default Unity button script because we don't actually need anything more than that. Transition. We actually don't want any transition. No navigation as far as I know. Instead, you have an on click. In this case, so that's all we really want. We don't want it to like do anything visibly when you click on it. We do want it to be interactable, and when you click on it, we want to make itself. So we're going to drag itself into there. Pack picker controller. So we're actually going to set up a specific method because we don't actually just directly want to call the thing. We actually want to say local void on click background like that. I want to be very explicit just in case we end up wanting some kind of specific thing. All right, so something else occurs to me. If you recall up here, we have this null. We don't actually need to do that because unlike here, where we had a specific use case for a null value. In other words, that means we're creating a new side pack. Here, if this callback doesn't call, nothing bad happens. Like we don't need to capture that null value at all. So I'm going to take that check out, go back in here. Just not going to call the callback on click background. And I'm just going to say like this. Game object does set active false. So it's just going to hide it. It's not going to call the callback or anything. I think that should do it. Let's find out. Oh, no, I actually have to wire it up first. Okay. Side back controller. Go down here. We got this button script here. That one. Pack picker controller on click background. So we've now linked that background as if it's a button. And now when I click this, I click outside of here to close it. And I'm pretty sure, ooh, that's a problem. Okay. That's a problem. I think it's because I'm pretty sure it's because it's the container. So I think what we might have to do is actually put that as its own, so it's a UI button. So let's just try and see if this works. Actually, I don't even want to. I want to do it the same way I did before. So I'm going to say UI panel. It's the same size as you can see. Goes in the background there. I want to do the same thing here. completely transparent because the color, the shade is handled by the actual background in this case. We're going to add a component, a button component just like we did before. No transition, no navigation, single on-click event which comes from the parent, and then pack controller on-click background. So we add that there. Background button. Side picker container here. And we're going to take out this whole component because we only want to collect that thing once. So I suspect that because this was the container, anything that is a direct child of the container also triggers the click. But I'm hoping because this is actually above this item, that's not going to be the case here. So let's find out. Yeah, now we have nothing happening there. And it still closes on the outside. So, cool. That being said, actually might make that just a touch darker. It's a little more obvious that this is happening. And then just make sure that it's turned off by default so it doesn't start open. And then, so we're actually pretty well set up at this point because we have, go back to our checklist, we have this is done, that's done, and then all we have to do remaining is show the title. Let's go ahead and show this one last time. And I think what I kind of want to do is rather than have it like inside of this box or something like that, I actually just want to show the title floating above. So let's see. Modern UI Pack, does it have label or is that too much work for this? I think it's too much. So we're just going to UI text mesh pro. I'm going to say title. Put that, oops. I don't know why it's giving me a hard time. I think it's giving me a hard time because this is in front of it. So this is something I might mess with this later, but let's see if that helped us. No, why is that not working? I'm having this problem again. Let's save this and come back to it in a second. All right. Let's Google why this is happening. maybe that's the problem. Okay, here we go. See this up here? That's the move tool. You don't really always have to do this apparently, but whatever. It's fine. Okay. So I don't really know what's happening right now. I don't know why none of my selection is showing up. Okay. Well, I'm still learning all of these interface things. So that apparently is the rect tool, which is what you need to select something. So let's actually just go ahead and make it the same width as the picker view, which is 515. And then let's make it the same center as well. So set the pivot so it's the same, like that. And then, because if you notice here, the pivot is 0, 1 for this one, which means it's going from here. So say 315. I swear to God, I have no idea how these things work. Yeah, I got nothing. I don't know why this is here and this is out here with the same value. So it's the same parent, I think. Anchors. Ah, there you go. That's why. I think. Part of the issue here is that these anchors are set, which actually is something that I will probably get to when we actually start doing game programming. Because this is purely designed for the iPad at the moment, we're not going to worry about the anchors because that's something that deals with variant screen sizes. So we're going to say just center that. We're going to put the height, let's say 40. Position down, no, down slightly. Let's follow that. And this is going to be the title of our picker. So, title picker. And the one last thing is we're actually going to grab going here. We have this a TMP text, so we're going to do that here as well. title text like that. And when we call the pack, we are going to say this dot title. No, we don't have to do the whole this dot text equals pack dot name like that. And then when we go back to Unity, then in our side picker thing here, we're going to take that title, pack title like that. We're going to take that and we're just going to drag it into that box over here like that. And then hopefully when we run this thing, it's not going to show up because we haven't picked anything. Boom, look at that. That shows up there just like that. And then because of the way we wired it up to begin with, if we actually enter a name here, Swamp Country. Okay, and boom, there it is. Accessible. Okay, that packet's very slightly too close for comfort, so I'm just going to move it up a touch. Yeah. And there it is. All right. Well, maybe slightly lower. That's fine. And then we just got to hide it again so that it doesn't start showing up. Oops. That's it. Easy peasy. So that should be good. Hope you enjoyed things. Hope you learned some stuff. And I'll see you next time.